Hi. So, just watched this video on YouTube, and I'll put a link to it at the corner of my screen. And it was going on, and even though I share his sentiments and everything else, I disagree with his last statements, which is what is good for one is good for the other when it comes to Marvel and DC. You know, what he was basically saying is, if one movie comes out and if Marvel brings out a movie, then we should celebrate it, and that therefore that should reflect on DC. Now, a part that is true, you know, that maybe if there is, if say there's an Aquaman movie comes out, and then that would open the doors for a Marvel film that's equivalent to that, which is Namor or something his name is, right? But that's not the case, because what is tend to happen, and what has happened with the likes of Wonder Woman, is we had the Captain Marvel movie that was then talked about, and all of a sudden, on some reports, that was deemed as the first female superhero movie, and I'm thinking, no, wait a minute, what about Wonder Woman? Then he tried to dress it up and call it Marvel's first female superhero movie. So there's always that tiny bit of competition into it. And when we're making movies just now, everything is compared to what has gone on before. And what I mean by that is, with Marvel having so many movies out, everything has seemed to be wanting to be like it. So if it's not like it, there is a sort of biased hatred towards it. So in retrospect, how do you fight against the biased views? And that is, of course, to automatically hate the film. Now, but is our given right not to like a film? For instance, I watch Marvel films, I've seen them, but they don't float my boat, so it's my given right to say that, right? To put my point across. I'm not condemning a movie. In my last video I spoke about the Spider-Verse. Again, I was a fan of Spider-Man. The whole storyline just doesn't float my boat. And the only Spider-Man movie I liked was the second guy to play him, but he only made one decent good movie with him and the Lizard. So for me, what is good for one is good for the other, and we should stop posting hateful comments or anything like that. And I went, and all this Marvel versus DC should stop, and in a way, yeah, I mean, it should stop, but that is not 100% down to the fans or people that watch the movies. It's down to the media. It's down to the biased pages out there, or the biased websites that are out there, or the biased critics that keep on fueling the fire in order to satisfy their own agenda. I mean, there's talks now about how Disney is actually, wanting to push their agenda on these certain subjects when it comes to Marvel versus DC. And when we start to see DC films now, let's be honest, right? The first superhero movie to really come out that really shone the way was definitely Christopher Reeve, Superman. So by rights, it's only Marvel that's maybe following DC, but that could be a biased view because we have what you call a Marvel Cinematic Universe. But if you cast your minds back, when DC then started saying, okay, maybe it's time for superheroes to come in to the cinema, right? Maybe this is the time, because nobody knew when would be the right time to release this type of movie, right, into the general public. But now, thanks to these recent superhero movies, that we're seeming to think, yeah, this is the time for superheroes. Let's all make superhero movies, which is right. Who cares who came first or who came second? But what has followed was that the companies behind the scenes were too busy trying to just think of money and profit, and what happened there was they got involved. Companies got involved and told directors that they weren't allowed to make a movie their own way, and that they should follow this other company, which was Marvel. And then what stemmed from that was when we got critical reviews from the film, and it has to be somehow, superhero movies has to be funny, cheesy, the same colour. They cannot be dark. They cannot be realistic. They've got to be tongue-in-cheek, cheesy movies, and that's not what half of the fans or critics want. That's what the critics wanted, was those type of films, because let's face it, they don't read comic books, and so they only base their love of cheesy superhero movies from the original, which was Christopher Reeve film, right? So we're now living in a state where fans of DC are left wondering, do we have a future? Does the DCU have a future? Because the film companies buggered us up. And thanks to the websites and biased YouTubes, we now have a division. We now have a sort of two teams fighting it out for top position. And with the fans side of things, now it's all well and said that we should support both DC and Marvel, right? But again, who says we like that? Majority of us, there was a big majority of us loved the BVS Ultimate Edition. We thought it was a fantastic film if the studio hadn't got involved in the first place. So, but because of the studio's involvement, it again caused the rift between people that actually saw the potential in BVS cinema release to the ones that are so used to popcorn sort of cheesy kids movies that you had in something like Captain America or Iron Man. They wanted something real. So when we got BVS Ultimate Edition, it was like, yes, now we can see the potential for DC. Now people are actually coming board on the look, because maybe they're getting a wee bit tired of the Marvel sort of formula. Then, lo and behold, we have the Aquaman movie that's came out. And again, divisive, because people were saying that film is either following the Marvel formula, and you have DC fans saying it's not, it's because we want individualism. We want to have our own set of recipes and ingredients to make a movie. We don't want it all feeling the same way as though it was done by the same company. That's not what fans are wanting. Fans can actually accept two different ways of making a movie. But thanks to the biased people out there and the critics, that they don't want that. They want everything made the same way. We look at the critics' Rotten Tomato scores. When we have Aquaman, who, again, I've said many times, could be considered to be the closest thing to a Marvel movie you can make. But again, it gets a low Rotten Tomato score. 64%. So are you trying to tell me there isn't a biased thing out there? So how can we fight against this? How can we argue that that we are DC supporters, that we're supporting DC? How can we make our presence known? Well, we're already sort of showing our presence by forming a lot of people around the world, like the Snyder release, the Snyder Cut, where people, fans from all around the world are coming together, and all they're wanting is the Snyder Cut, because they're showing their support for Zack Snyder and the DC universe that they wanted to create. That is a good way. But would they be called hypocrites if they started campaigning for the other side as well? No, because that's the dark side that they wanted, right? They didn't, they wanted the Snyder sort of vision of the universe. They are not really interested in the Marvel side, but the Marvel's getting all the praises. So how does the Snyder fans or DC fans feel about that? Well, they feel betrayed by just about everybody that is somehow, on this side of the fence. And, it's... So yeah, people have got the right to be good. And I think until DC and Marvel somehow is accepted on a bigger, grander scale on things, say for instance we get a movie that is totally unlike anything that's been done before. I'm not talking about Aquaman Under the Water. I'm talking about, say Zack Snyder comes in, makes Man of Steel 2, right? Makes it his own way without studio involvement, and then all of a sudden we have a high tomato score and we have an audience rating that's pretty high and it's accepted world over, then that would be a very, very, very good sign that the end of biased reviews is here. But until then, people have got the right to support their movies and to be a supporter for the DC, and not as much for Marvel's, because I've seen reports saying that people were not going to see Aquaman because they wanted the Snyderverse. They wanted to make a statement against DC and Warner Brothers, and said, well, no, that's not the way to do it. You still have to support the DC films to keep them coming out, to keep them making the movies. The only way you could possibly do that, and to make your voices heard probably, is by supporting just the DC and very little of the Marvel. And in that way, people and biased critics will suddenly start saying that the DC movies are getting more of an audience than the Marvel, so the critics will probably jump ship and start complimenting DC movies rather than Marvel ones, because critics like to be on the side of the majority. And the only way to get a majority is by voting for the films that you love. And that is why what's good for one isn't necessarily good for the other. Thank you.